Ladies and gentlemen, how are you doing on this somewhat dreary Sunday afternoon, morning? I don't know what time it is. I have been away having a peaceful slumber for the last 9 months, as I typically do when the Steelers flame out in the first round of the playoffs. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. Of course, we are here to talk about the bright and sunny dawn of a new Pittsburgh Steelers season, one led as usual by Michael Petaway Tomlin, one led not so as usual by Aaron Rodgers. Oh boy, so many developments this offseason. Gage is half dead at the suggestion that Aaron Rodgers is now our quarterback. Guys, I'm so happy to talk to you again. Missed y'all. But yeah, I would be remiss, obviously, if I did not introduce for the first time this season my partner in crime, Mr. Gage Ryan Video. How you doing, bud?
Oh, just sensational, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing good. See, it's like you get started on this stuff, and I'm like, I think you saw it even in the 4 minutes that we talked before we got on the air, where I get on and I'm like, yeah, I don't know, whatever. And then you're like, so what do you think? And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about it. And then you're like, no, but what do you think? And I'm like, Well, I have a lot of feelings. um,
Hey, listen, I think that there's he's a polarizing personality, that Aaron Rodgers. And I mean, it's not just him, right?
oh, I
Like
thought
this
you were gonna
whole
say
team
me,
is in a
but yeah,
very
yeah.
oh, well, gee, we're comparing you to Aaron Rodgers. I mean, you are Mother Teresa compared to that man.
Hmm.
Uh, Point being though is that this is a team with a ton of grizzled vets and a whole lot of unproven talent, and it
Hmm.
just kind of culminates in this feeling that we're going to go 500 or slightly above, like we kind of do every year. There's not a lot of, well, how is this going to go? You know what I mean? There's not a lot to the imagination, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. That's kind of the thing, right? Is like you just no matter how you run the numbers, you kind of just come to the same equation. Like I don't know. There's a lot of people, not a lot of people, but there's a handful of people in the chat. Shout out to some of the long term 5-star folks in the chat. JBSMM, a real original, been around forever, says 10-7 going to go crazy this year. And yeah, it is, right? That 10-7, no matter. I mean, last year, like the last I was thinking about this. Like, I'm gonna have to pull it up while we're in the middle of the stream. But like, I was thinking about how like just how much has changed in the last like 2 years, right? Like, I remember being like
Mm.
deep into the 2010s, right, and being like, wow, there like how many guys are left from the Super Bowl and counting like like oh like Ben and James Harrison and Bryant McFadden or whatever it is, right? And now I try to count the amount of people the other day that have uh, that still played with Ben, which is only like 4 years
Yeah.
ago or 5 years ago, whatever. And it's not many. Who did I come up with on offense? I think Pat Fryermuth. I think that's it. I think he's the only one now
I
that
think that's it too.
now that Najee's gone. Like it's just it's wild how quickly that has changed. I mean, we just went from like such a like the same thing, same kind of roster and all that, and now it's just been so much turnover, and I don't know if we're better off for it.
I don't think so either. It feels like you go from shooting for the stars, right? Shooting for a Super Bowl to maintaining,
Yeah.
where it's about, well, if we can get to here. I mean, like, listen, we saw them get to 9 to 10 wins or whatever it was last year, and then you visibly saw them just kind of check out. It was very strange. And I mean,
Yeah.
along with the other things you heard in the offseason, and like from Ravens players, I'm not even talking about like from media or whatever, but from players of other teams that went into our home stadium, and to have them say like, yeah, their locker room has this problem, or they've had these issues for a while now. It kind of leaves you wondering like, what are we, you know?
Yeah, right. That's kind of like what I'm always thinking too, which is like just the fact that like people anytime like in the off season, right? And I'm not gonna try to like say that I was like pro bringing in Aaron Rodgers because I very
Mhm.
clearly was not. I did think we reached a
No.
point where that became the best option, and like it was what it was, right? So at that point, I was like, is this probably better from a football standpoint than not doing it? Yeah, like it was, and
It is.
but I just, yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one to swallow, I think, because last year it felt very much like okay, the Pickett thing flamed out. It was clear that like he did not have you know, the leadership qualities that they expected in a quarterback that they took in the first round, and you just had to move on. Like that was clear, and I think you and I both
Hmm.
felt that even though we disliked kind of Russell Wilson, the character, and obviously I famously did, and now I'm getting
Hmm.
my comeuppance for being an asshole and starting all these feuds. I know the Steelers are going to get Kirk Cousins next year, and this is just going to be this is what my fate is as an online Steelers fan, is to just start feuds with quarterbacks I hate only for them to be like 1 year Indianapolis Colts like stopgaps for the Steelers. um, maybe Matt Ryan could
Speaking of
come out of retirement.
Indianapolis
Go ahead.
Colts
Yeah.
stopgaps, I think that like the fact that a lot of people have mentioned that Anthony Richardson could very well be a Steeler next year, and it makes sense to all of us, is just the worst thing on planet Earth to me.
Oh, yeah, that you could take that to the bank. That is 100% exactly what's gonna happen. Yeah, that is what's gonna happen. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just I don't want to start this on like a negative point because like obviously there are a lot of things to be excited about. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. We just haven't like caught up in a while, Gage. So like what was I'm sure that people want to know what was your summer like? Did you get up to some good stuff this summer?
I've been working on a lot of 5-star content through the summer. That was a kind of a summer vacation point of emphasis for me. It was just whenever I had some free time, I was working on. I didn't like the length of video that I was working with last year, so I was trying to up that and whatnot. So between doing 5-star content, doing my MMA content, that was kind of my summer, was making videos. So
Cool.
outside of that, though, like thinking about the Steelers and trying to kind of put together what they would look like for this upcoming year, like you were saying earlier, you just kind of come back to the same general conclusion where you go, yeah, this will get to 9 to 10, whatever the count is, and I think that that's kind of where it stays. And I don't. You were talking about Aaron a little bit ago, and like I want to know your thoughts though, because on one hand, he's not completely over the hill. It's not like he just has zero ability left. And you were talking about how you think that like where after a certain point where every other free agent basically was gone, it's like who are you left with but Aaron Rodgers? So that being said, though, I think a lot of the general sentiment from the last 6 months or whatever of discourse, especially through the summer, was people saying, hey, Pittsburgh, you can win 6 games for a year so that you can actually build a better roster and make a real run rather than, like we said, maintaining. Would you have been more content with a 6-win season this year without Aaron Rodgers, or are you content with the
Yeah.
Tomlin keeping his streak?
Yeah, no, I would have been excited. I would have been more. This is easy to say when you're in this position now that we're in, as opposed to saying it in the between time. But, I was in contact with all of you guys in the Discord server, which, by the way, patreon.com/5SMU. Wow, I had to like think about that link for a second. I'm gonna say that 27,000 times in the next 4 months. Um, yeah, that I did like. I was excited when they brought Mason Rudolph back because I thought it was like an opportunity. Like one, it was just kind of funny, especially for you and me. Like
Yeah.
the way that we have like in some way Mason Rudolph has been like the main character of Five Star Matchup. Like it I don't know how or why, but that is what ended up happening. And so it was just kind of funny to see him come back and he's got the mustache now and you're like, what is like I love this like reinvention of Mason Rudolph. But I was excited about
He
it
looks
because
like Mason Rudolph's evil twin.
he does. But that's appealing to me. You know what I mean? Like I like the idea of an evil Mason Rudolph, so I'm excited. I was excited for that, and I thought that was interesting, and at least a good move for depth, no matter what. But I was excited to see what would happen if you just said fuck it. Let's give Mason Rudolph a year and have him just throw deep bombs to George Pickens and DK Metcalf. And part of me was like, honestly, it might not be that bad of an idea. Like it might surprise some people if your whole goal is to have like a run game and like whatever, and you're just gonna trot out there with like 2 receivers, and the thing is just like, okay, run, chuck it deep. All right, Ben did that for a long time. It could be a lot, it could be okay. Um, but then yeah, you sign Rogers, and I had no problem with the whole like courting thing, like the way people freak out. I really have been like relieved of a lot of like the nonsense of like social media sports fandom in the last 2 years by like just not participating in it anymore, to be honest. Like I just think a lot of
Good for
people
you.
a lot of people just like spend so much time, like I don't know, I saw a little this preseason with the way people were talking about Cam and the contract, and I was just like, man, like you know what? It's Cam Hayward. Like he can do that. He's earned it. Like you are a person sitting on your couch. You're 23 years old, and like you know, like no offense, but he's allowed to do that if he wants to do that. And people were just treating him so like unbelievably negatively, and it's like, dude, you're talking about imaginary money that you're never gonna see. Like, what do you care? Like,
I've never heard someone say that we should trade Cam Hayward until the last few weeks, and then I've seen trade Cam become almost a thing on social media, on Steelers Twitter, and it just kind of reminds you about the environment that you're in. It's a good reminder that at any point you very well may be arguing with either a bot or a 14-year-old, and I don't know
yeah,
which one
that's
is
the
worse.
that's the thing is I've gotten so much further removed from the average age of the people freaking out about that stuff that I just am like,
Uh,
yeah, that's not, you know, I don't know what you're talking about anymore. But I guess throughout, so that whole period with the Aaron Rodgers thing where it's like, you know, people are like, oh well, you know, he should, and Cam Hayward of all people was like, well, you know, you either want to be a Steeler or you don't, or whatever it was that he infamously said. I love this era of
yeah.
every athlete having a podcast, by the way. Gives you so many more opportunities to call them hypocrites. Like, you know, whatever. Stop doing it. I'm not forcing you to do it. You already have millions of dollars. I don't. So, you know, whatever. But yeah, I just, you know, I never like had a problem with the way they were pursuing Rodgers. Like, whatever. If he's not ready to commit, that's not, you know, he's 41 years old. You know, if you want to sign Tom Brady or something, God forbid, and he tells you to wait 2 months, you're gonna wait 2 months. Like, you know, so that was fine for me. I don't think it's really important for a 41-year-old quarterback, you know, who's taken as many snaps as he has to be practicing in April or May or whatever. But um, yeah, I don't know.
It's not a
I
huge deal.
no, I guess they ended up in, you know, but it's just gonna it's gonna be the exact same thing that we've said now for shit every year that we have done this show. Every year so
I
far,
think so.
where you're just like, it's just gonna come down to how good the quarterback situation is. It's the same as every year. That's really it's the same thing every time, and that's like what the Rodgers thing is really giving me this PTSD of is like, dude, I'm just so tired of convincing myself every year, like, yeah, it'll be good, and then at some point they'll be like 7-4, and I'll be like, yeah, they're like pretty okay, and then they'll lose 3 games in a row, and it's gonna, and then they'll stumble in at 10-7, and you know, God, it just feels like you're magnetically pulled to this middle, you know.
JBSM mentioned it in the chat, and I really wanted to make sure that it was one of my notes to get to before we did this, which is just: are you aware that Mike Tomlin is one playoff loss away from tying Marvin Lewis's all-time playoff loss consecutive, streak?
Wow, is that true? Is that really
That is
true?
true. You can look that up. Yeah, he's one away from
Yeah.
tying Marvin Lewis.
No, it's bad. I mean, it is bad. I really, man, and you know, and again, I'm just not trying to be negative because I do think that there are good things about this team, and maybe we'll get to them, maybe. But
At some
I,
point this
but
year.
I did just think that I did. I just felt like we were getting to a natural conclusion point with the Tomlin thing, and I thought that he had a real chance. I'm not trying to go back on sour grapes, but hey, this is like the storyline of this game with the Jets versus the Steelers, obviously, like with the Justin Fields and Aaron Rodgers switcheroo that's taken place between these two teams. But man, you know, I was strong about this last year was that I thought Tomlin stumbled into something with Justin Fields that was working out really well. And I thought it fit what they wanted to do. I thought it had a future. I thought it had a possibility where like it could be a pretty cheap solution for the next 2 years, and you might have a guy coming into their own, and you might be able to surround him with a lot of talent because you're not spending that much on him. And they let it get away, and I think more than anything, it seems to me, don't you think that it was because he got benched? Like, I think I think Justin Fields didn't sign here, regardless of the deal and what the numbers were. I think he didn't sign here because I think he felt disrespected by what Tomlin did to him last year. Because I don't think he deserved it. I think he earned the job and should have kept it. and I still believe that. I believe that even when Wilson was doing good, there was no future or ceiling on Wilson coming in. There was a future or a ceiling with Fields. I don't know. I don't want to. What do you think?
No, but that's true. Like that was a big part of my point was the that what more were you going to get with Russ, but what we got. That was kind of the best case scenario is what we got from him, and it was still late season Russ, if you will. Not to drone on that point again, but we've seen what Russ does throughout the back part of the year usually. And yeah, to your point with Justin, where we just kind of used him like rookie Lamar. I've mentioned it a million times before, but it's true. And it's like spread him 5 wide, let him run a quarterback draw, like just, play to his strengths and not don't play hazardous under cautious ball like he did in Chicago, and all of a sudden you see decent results from it. I think both of our quarterbacks combined threw like 8 interceptions, 9, something like that. It was like between 2 players. Like we did pretty well with Justin, and even if he was a stopgap or something, I would still much rather have that stopgap because it's much more fun to A, to watch, and B, to hear from than the stopgap we currently have.
It was, well, yeah, to hear from. That's a really good point there. I have found something, as I've approached middle age, because that's what's happened here now that I've been doing this show for, is this season 7?
I think this is 7, yeah.
Yeah, wow, season 7. I've also reached old guy age where I'm just wearing like my favorite retired player because I don't even know anybody that's on the team anymore. All my jerseys have gone. Minka now is gone. I haven't even commented on Minka publicly, but that really tore me up, even though he did kind of suck last year. Yeah, listen, Justin Fields threw 5 touchdowns to 1 pick last year. And what did he have rushing? He must have rushed for 4 or 5 touchdowns. 5! He rushed for 5 touchdowns and almost 300 yards in 5 games, whatever he started. Like, yeah, I don't know, man. I thought that was something where I saw the the multiplicity or whatever it is that you want to say with like Arthur Smith's offense. And I think in his heart of hearts, I think if you really held his feet to the fire, and we felt this last year too, because I remember late in the season, they were saying that Arthur Smith and Russell Wilson weren't on the same page. And I think if you really asked Arthur Smith and gave him some truth serum, I think he would have rather stuck with Justin Fields too. I think he fit better what he wanted to do, and I think he knew that, Russell Wilson was always going to bring like his own kind of like, whatever it is to that game. And and so I don't know. That really bugged me that they let him get away. And then I thought in the free agency that they were for sure going to sign him because it sounded like they were really going to just be like, yeah, like let's keep Justin Fields. We'll move on with him as the quarterback this year, next year. And then obviously the Jets came in and offered him what I didn't think was like that much money. I really didn't. $40 million over 2 years to be a starting quarterback is not a lot of money in the NFL now. Yeah, I don't know.
No,
so, yeah, it's weird. It's weird looking back on last year now with some space from it.
Yeah, and the fact that Justin, you weren't gonna that was the kind of money that not only could Pittsburgh have easily afforded, but I kind of missed your question from the last part of this discussion, and I wanted to make sure I circled back to it, that they had the ability to sign him, but there were, I think, 2 contributing factors. One was, like you mentioned, the benching, but I don't think that was necessarily a make or break point for it. I think that the make or break point was that Justin wanted, I guess, assurance that he was the number 1 guy, or he at least wanted assurance that he wasn't going to get his job stolen by Aaron Rodgers, and they were not, under any circumstances, apparently, willing to give him either of those things. And once that was made perfectly clear, plus the benching, I think he was like, okay, you guys take care. And it was just mishandled to me. And it's not like Justin Fields is going to win us some Super Bowl, but he was at least fun to watch and could get you some wins, and he wasn't putting the ball in reckless danger like he did in Chicago. I would have liked to have seen where that went throughout the next year or two, as opposed to, again, where we're probably at now in the next year or two, where you're praying that Will Howard turns into the next 6th round great, and if not, then what on earth are you doing outside of just hoping for a first rounder in 2026?
Yeah, I know, right? That's the thing. I don't know. Yeah, it's It's tricky. It's weird. I don't know how I like because the Aaron Rodgers thing, right? If you kind of run it down, right? Like, okay, what's the best? Like, put on your rose-colored Yinzer glasses, right? What's the best
Hmm.
thing that could happen? Like seriously. And shout out Black Rain, by the way, first super chat of the season, of course, because he's a legend. 4.99. What a guy. Yes, I know that the stove is hot, and yes, I'm gonna put my hand on it anyway. Here we go. What a legend. We love Black Rain. One of the most
Absolutely.
present people of all time in the 5-star Discord server, I would say, if not the most. I think it's probably a tie between him and Epic Panda Ninja, right? I would guess.
Yeah, definitely one of the two.
Yeah.
And like honestly, the if you're asking for rose-colored glasses, or like let's put everything together and just say that what is it that our corner situation clears up without a problem, that our quarterback plays well and doesn't cause any locker room division and whatnot. If you put everything together, this still just feels like 11 wins
Okay.
or so is like maybe the best case scenario.
Okay. 11 wins, and so, but then, all right. What I think you could. I think all right. Let's like look at some positives here. I do think you could make a distinct case that the defense is better. I think the money is more evenly allocated at this point. I think the trade. It took me a while to settle into it, but I do think the trade for Minka for Jalen Ramsey is probably a plus on the football field. I think Jalen Ramsey is probably a better player at this point than Minka, at least for what they want. Because every indication is that he's going to be like playing slot snaps and stuff like that. So they really think of him as like this, hybrid kind of player. Like I think he's going to be playing a little bit of safety and stuff. And the Steelers were spending a lot of money on a position that we saw. Like if quarterbacks abuse that position, like the way that they were running out their defense, it doesn't make a difference if you're Minka Fitzpatrick or you're just some guy. It doesn't always matter. You can't always have that kind of impact on the game from that position. That's why most teams don't spend that much money on like a free safety like that unless they're Ed Reed or something. Um, and so like I think that trade is, in total a positive. I kind of like the Darius Slay signing. I think that that's like really smart. I don't know if he's still like really, what we think of Darius Slay as being. I think he's 33 years old, something like that. But does that give you a better position group at corner? Like 100% it does. There's no doubt about it. And then you got Joey, who's like the young guy with the athleticism and the speed. So I don't know if they can kind of, and I think it was important too to get people in the room with him to get him to kind of to up his technique a little bit, right? Because that was the only thing
Mhm.
negative on him those first 2 years was just a lot of penalties and a lot of grabbiness and stuff like that. Um, but I don't know. I think if you want to say something, I do think the defense could be better, particularly if the front seven stays healthy, because I don't think they have a ton of depth on the defensive line. So a lot is really riding on Cam Hayward staying healthy at 36. But
Which
I
is
don't,
probably why he asked for that extension,
and I
or not
can't
the extension, but the extra money.
I can't blame him. Andrew Meacham in the chat says Slay strikes me as Joe Hayden 2.0 signing. Only question is if he lifts weights. Good callback. Joe Hayden lifts weights. That's my favorite. One of my favorite
I miss
moments.
Joe.
One of my favorite moments ever in the show. I felt like when I was really like coming into my own of making like 5-star matchup was that Titans game in 2021, like Ben's last year, and that was when Joe had that cool like somebody like was like going down to make a catch and they like popped the ball up and he like dove in and grabbed it. And I like screamed,
Mm.
"He lifts weights!" and I put like effects on it and stuff. Yeah, that was good time.
Yeah,
I miss Joe.
I
Joe's one of
remember
my
that, and
favorites.
I miss Joe too. He was definitely one of my. He's been one of my favorite Steelers in recent memory. He was only here for a year. This shows how likable Joe Hayden is. Joe Hayden is beloved in Pittsburgh and he's beloved in Cleveland. How many people throughout all of human history can say that?
Yeah, not many at all. That's for sure. Yeah, he's a good
And
guy. Doing a podcast now with
as
James Harrison, I think.
yeah. And it's funny. I James is an oddly good podcaster, like better than you would kind of imagine he would be. where someone tells him that he looks intimidating, it doesn't look very friendly, and you see him be like, "You really think so?" And you're like, "No, James, we all love you here."
Yeah, no,
No, but
James Harrison's the character. I always felt he was like acting a bit, like right, because he tried to do some
a
acting
little
roles
bit.
and stuff too. So I think he like plays it up. You know, I think he knows like
Yeah.
the presentation he's putting out there. You know.
If only Chris Boswell knew during his rookie year, though. That poor sap.
Shout out Boswell now. He's been on the team so long, man. I was thinking about this. Like, he's definitely, I mean, far and away the greatest kicker in Steelers history, and he's like a top 5
Easily.
kicker in NFL history. So if you want to talk about something rosy, I think it's time I finally should get a Boz like nice like jersey. I
Get one,
know,
man. Get it.
I know. I want it in the new throwback though, but I think they only have like a handful of players available in those. I kind of is it sac okay, all right, this is a totally different shift in conversation, but like
Well, here, before we get off of Chris
okay, go ahead.
Boswell,
Oh
I
yeah,
just
yeah,
always
yeah.
want to make it known. Do you know that Boz has more 50-plus yarders than every previous Steelers kicker put together?
Oh, that makes sense. The guys now, it's crazy what they hit. That's changed in like 5 years. It's crazy how much that has
Mhm.
like changed. When I was watching the Thursday night game the other day, and the guy, you know, for the Eagles, who's not like a super long legged guy, and they tried him,
Elliott,
yeah,
yeah.
they tried him out for a 57 yarder, and he fucking drilled it. Like, I mean, it's just you remember, like, I mean, 5 years ago, you'd be like, okay, Justin Tucker, and unless it's desperate, like, you know, you're not trotting out too many guys for a casual 57 yarder, and now they do it like at will. It's just like shooting threes in the NBA or something. Like, it's changed so much. I mean,
And
I remember 53 was where you were like, that's like the edge of like humanly possible most of my life. Like,
it was always with it's Peyton Manning. I always remember that he would talk about that, and he's like, I like the kicking approach more than the Hail Mary at the end of the game, which gave you your third interception on the day. But I remember that. I remember that shit. Like it's interesting that in my lifetime I got to witness that evolution of kickers happen, because we were all like, we all remember Sean Sweezum. We all love Boz, and we all kind of remember Roy Jarella and some of the more historical
Gary
Steeler kickers,
Anderson.
but Gary Anderson. But I remember Jeff Reed, and
Yeah.
for even though he usually made it, if you put him in 50, 52, you would never dream of making Jeff Reed kick a 58-yard field goal. That just was not
It was
even
not
in
in
the
the
conversation.
lexicon of what was possible. Yeah.
No.
Unless you put
But
like
okay, so
unless you put a Sheets paper towel dispenser behind the goal post, then he would drill it every time.
You know what? I saw Jeff signed a paper towel dispenser for a fan, so I give him a lot of credit for having a sense of humor, at least.
Yeah, Jeffrey.
But you were
is
talking about a
great, yeah.
shift. You were talking
Yeah.
about a shift in the combo, and what were we getting to?
It was a jersey question.
Okay.
So you know I'm a big fan of the single digit revolution. I know there are a lot of people that don't like it, but man, I saw that when they came out. I don't know if they sold out now, but the Jalen Ramsey in the throwback. Jalen Ramsey's wearing number 5, and like just the block numbers. I was like, man, that's sick. But I was like, he's a free agent, and I haven't seen him play a single snap as a Steeler. And I also just can't get him out of my head. Like, that's the other thing. I can't get him out of my head because he was on those Jaguars teams that talked so much shit and beat the shit out of us. And so I can't just like be like, oh yeah, Jalen Ramsey. Like, it's so hard to think about that. It's the same with Aaron Rodgers, right? Like, no matter
Aaron
what,
Rodgers.
it's still my most significant Aaron Rodgers memory is Super Bowl 45. Like, you know.
It just hurts, man. It doesn't feel correct. At least with the not throwbacks, but what are those called? Those historical jerseys or whatever the hell. I don't care. Everybody says that they look ugly. The ones that Pat
Oh,
Fryermuth
sick.
was wearing, and
Yeah.
I don't care. I love them, and I can't wait to see him. But they had to put him on Pat Fryermuth because he was pretty much the only guy on the offense with any experience with the freaking team.
I know, the 88 is sick. Well, they printed up Minka jerseys in that because I saw them on Fanatics.com. They were on
Right.
clearance for $50.
Yeah, you are correct.
So because he's, you know, at the time one of the star players. I almost bought it just out of like just for the giggles. But yeah, I like them. I think they're cool. I like that the number on the back is different than the number on the front. I mean, you know what I always feel like with jerseys? Like, it's one of the things that I love about the NBA over the NFL is that they're just like, yeah, whatever. They wear a different jersey every night. It doesn't matter. You could wear your white ones at home, your black ones. You could wear this one, that one. It doesn't matter. I think it's like
Yeah.
silly. What is the sanctity? Like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, that's why I like
I think that we
college. Like, it's
should.
cool that Oregon has a different jersey literally every week. Who cares?
No, I agree. And like I wish that we used our other jerseys. I wish every team used their different like repertoire of jerseys. You know, you can go into Madden and you can find like the endless amounts of the 13 to 15 home and the 1972 throwback. I wish that they would go all out and utilize that a lot more often. You know, we see the color rushes what, once a year, twice a year. We they retired the Bumblebees, which is a criminal offense to me. I love
Well,
the
they
Bumblebees,
retired.
and I
They're
don't
not
care
gonna
who
wear.
doesn't.
They're not gonna wear these jerseys anymore either, which I think is just such a
It's,
travesty.
we always got to have round. I don't know what is with the round number evolution that they've had that with the last like 20 years or so, but I'm not a fan. Right? We need some block letters too. You got to have some uniqueness in there.
Yeah, I really thought that they were slowly beginning to transition to this as their main jersey. I really did because like that all
I
the
did
like
too.
the alternate jerseys had block numbers and stuff. I just was like, oh, it seems like that's gonna be the logical because it's just to me, even though this is the throwback, this looks more modern and current than like the round numbers, which look very 90s to me. Um, but yeah, I guess we'll
90s,
never.
early 2000s.
Yeah, I never. I guess we'll never get that. Shane Giggle says I'm not allowed to get players' jerseys. Bus went down. Ward went down. Ben goes through the windshield. Derrick Rose kills both knees. Yeah, that's a rough run, but that's some sick jerseys, man. The Bus, Derrick Rose, Big Ben. I mean, hey, the Big Ben jersey paid off for 20 years. All right, for about 20 years, you could get me a number 7 jersey as a gift, and I would never have been. I mean, hell, I'll still be happy, but um, yeah, I don't know, man. The longer that this post Roethlisberger society goes on without a solution is it's just wearing on me. And you know, did you see by the way? Did you see Kenny Pickett get traded again?
Where is he? He's in Cleveland now, right?
No, he got
Or
traded
did he
from
go to Las
Cleveland.
Vegas?
Yeah, he got traded. He got traded to Cleveland. Wasn't going to make the team, and then they traded him to the Raiders. So now he's on the Raiders with Pete Carroll and Geno Smith, which I think is just bizarre, but good for him. Still on his rookie deal, 27 years old.
On his
Crazy,
like seventh or eighth team.
crazy, crazy. That never worked out,
Shout
huh?
out Zach Gentry.
Yeah, yeah. That didn't work out, huh? That pick, not a good
No,
pick.
and you know, and you could see like a lot of people couldn't, I guess, but I could have seen if you squinted and looked at it, you could see where a decent NFL starter was in there, but he just never improved really. He had that one thing where he could put together one singular drive at the end of the game to win it if it was close, but you gotta do something. You can't go 3 and out for 3 consecutive quarters.
I agree with you, but do you like how much do you think though? Like, I mean, not to look back on this because whatever, but we're just on the topic. Like, how much do you think he's just like bringing back Canada that second year? I think it was just so obvious that that was gonna screw him, right? That's the thing about the Steelers that like I keep saying like is that I find myself we used to have this like superiority thing of like, well, the Steelers do things the right way and like whatever. And like, but now so many things in the last like 5 years in the post Roethlisberger society, I feel like I'm making excuses for them. And then you look at it and you're like, that's the stuff I used to criticize the bad teams for doing. You know what I mean? And now the Steelers are kind of like
Yeah.
just doing that, repeatedly. And the Pickett thing, like, yeah, I do think it was over after 23. I think it was time to move on. It felt like there was like a personality issue there, and like they just were not
Yeah.
on the same page. But also, like, they gave him Matt Canada. They didn't let him start coming out of camp. They wasted time with Mitchell Trubisky for whatever fucking reason. We knew that was going to be 2 games and people were going to be like Kenny Pickett, which already creates like an adversarial relationship between Mitchell Trubisky, who's trying to be a starting quarterback in the league and trying to take opportunity, advantage of his opportunity. He sucked too, but still, to his credit, he wanted to like play. And then, and then you replace him with Pickett and he has Matt Canada and you have like half a year where it's okay. And then the next year you go in and you bring Matt Canada back when everybody knew like he was absolutely terrible. And it became literally a pop culture moment to be like fire Matt Canada that people were talking about in like mainstream culture. Um, I don't know. I don't think they did right by him either. I don't know if it would have changed that much, but did the Steelers do right by Pickett? I don't know.
Nah.
I don't think so.
No, they definitely didn't. They did not put him in a position to succeed, and that's why a lot of quarterbacks that are successful, as well as a lot of quarterbacks that flame out, both of them alike, will tell you that quarterbacks don't fail. Young quarterbacks don't fail teams. Teams fail young quarterbacks, and I think there is a lot of truth to that. If you're in a position, here's an example, right? This just shows you how quickly a young quarterback's career can change. Everybody remembers Mac Jones and his time on the Patriots, and he was historically bad in a lot of cases. Mac Jones, if I'm not mistaken, please somebody fact check me, and I'm okay to be proven wrong. But to the best of my knowledge, Mac Jones had one of the most efficient and accurate rookie seasons in NFL history. And it's because he had Belichick running his defenses. He had Josh McDaniels, who's a terrible head coach, but a decent enough offensive coordinator. He had him running his. Yeah, he's great. He won like 3 or 4 Super Bowls just being, doing his thing. He had Matt Castle go 11-5. Like he's all right.
He's the definitive
but he had all of these
the 2010s, like I think.
Yeah. I don't even think there's an argument for second place unless you want to. I mean, Andy Reid, but he's a head coach. You get the point. But then between that first year where Mac Jones was excellent, he got destroyed in the playoffs. But hey, it was the Buffalo Bills. But then in that second year after McDaniels, the first year he goes to Las Vegas, and so for Mac Jones's sophomore campaign, they bring in Joe Judge and Matt Patricia to run the offense.
Did you just read this article on the Athletic or something? They just had an article about like busts because they were talking about Anthony Richardson. Did you read this? This was like
no.
Oh wow, okay. I just read this like a week ago. Yeah. Okay, go on.
Yeah, no, but like there is a lot of truth to the idea. Now, sometimes there's Jamarcus Russells or there's personality issues like a Kenny Pickett, and there's all sorts of underlying issues, and it's very seldom a black and white thing in football. But I do think that they put Kenny Pickett in probably the worst possible spot to succeed. Matt Canada being your OC, Mike Tomlin, who's offensively, not there, and you put basically the same amount of workload on him that you did for Ben in his later years, because they didn't really change the offense to a huge degree. What are you expecting outside of him to kind of flame out in a lot of ways, unless he was some kind of great talent? You and I were kind of fixating on the game-winning drives and about how good he would do in certain moments, but I think that for a lot of the time we were going, okay, we need more though.
Yeah, because it was like 3.5 quarters where you'd be like, we have 6 points. Like, I mean, the guy threw what, 13 touchdown passes in 2 years or something like that?
2 years.
Yeah, I mean,
lowest touchdown percentage in NFL history.
I mean, brutal. I just heard a stat like this morning on like the Steelers Nation radio or something. I was listening for half an hour while we were getting set up, and they were like, over the last like 5 years or whatever it is, Aaron Rodgers has thrown, I think, like more than double the touchdowns that the Steelers have as a franchise, which is just like crazy to think about. I mean, he is going to improve, right? Like, let's like really just like dig into that again, because like that's the thing is like, is he gonna make the offense better? I think baseline, if he stays healthy, he's gonna make the offense better, right? Like, I mean, just like mentally, he's the best player that they've had back there, obviously, since Roethlisberger, and probably ever, right? I mean, if you just look at the body of work, say whatever you want about Aaron Rodgers, the guy, but like Aaron Rodgers, the player, the mental processor of the game, it would be fair to say, like, the most advanced at that's ever played for the Steelers, right? I mean, I think that's like not a hot take.
No, I mean Terry Bradshaw was great for calling his own plays and whatnot, but he also played in the 1970s. Ben Roethlisberger
Different,
was a
yeah.
great player, but he was never a study the tape guy. He was gonna what was that joke we made last year that was like he was gonna drink a couple beers and then fall asleep at 9 o'clock. Aaron Rodgers, I think, has scored like what's that quarterback IQ test that they make all rookie
Yeah, the
quarterbacks take, and I
Wonderlic.
think Aaron the one, yeah. And so I think, if I'm not mistaken, he had one of the highest test scores of that ever. And so to say the guy knows ball is kind of an understatement. He's definitely the most sophisticated quarterback we've ever had. But how much of that's left? Because eventually you do kind of get stuck in your ways. You do eventually start doing the same things. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I mean, I think okay, so like I think mentally he's gonna make the offense better. I guess I kind of wonder like the biggest problem that I have with it though is like how flexible is Arthur Smith gonna be in designing this offense? Because the biggest thing that I just see here is that I just don't really see how I don't see how they fit together. You know, because I don't think Rodgers is at a stage in his career at this point where you want him like running rollouts and stuff like that and moving in the pocket as much as you did 5 or 6 years ago. He's 41 years old, right? You don't want him taking that many lower body chances in general. You know, it is what he's a year and a half. I don't know if people realize this. He's a year and a half younger than Roethlisberger, who last played 5 years ago. I mean, it's not. You know, Ben didn't even make it to what? I mean, what Ben if he retired 5 years ago was 38.
He was like 39, 38,
Yeah.
39.
So I mean, so he's 2 or 3 years older than Ben ever was playing, and Ben was shot, and it was the lower body that really got him, and Rogers has had an Achilles tear, so I don't know. I don't know how they fit together, but I do think if they are able to put their heads together and come up with like a conceivably decent offense, I think the offense is gonna be improved. I do. I mean, with what I saw with Wilson in the back half of last year, I'm sorry. I know people were like, "Oh, he's off to a good start," and then there's the hard teams. He looked. It wasn't just that it was good teams. He was horrible in those last few games. I'll
Horrible.
never forget 2 minute drill against the Bengals that I just talked
The two
about,
minute
where
drill.
it was the worst thing I've ever seen, and it made me really like. It changed my entire viewpoint on Russell Wilson, the football player. I literally was like, this guy is not like. I always thought he was like a kind of. I thought he had more going on in terms of the processing of the game, and man, I just saw over and over last year that he was a guy I think that got by with really good skill set and stuff, and I think once that like went away, I don't think he was able to kind of do the like off the cuff amazing things anymore, and that just made him like a very mediocre player. He didn't adapt as he got older. Even Ben, like if you want, people criticize the last couple of years of Ben's game, but like he made himself a serviceable player and won a lot of games just by like shifting what he was physically able to do. And so I gave him a lot of credit for that. Obviously, like they weren't going to beat Patrick Mahomes doing that, but whatever. He wanted to finish out his career and he did it admirably. Wilson last year just so bad. He's going to be terrible with the Giants. That is going to be so bad. Same thing as Mitchell Trubisky with us a couple of years ago. He's going to flame out in 3 games. They're going to start the rookie. Like, I don't get that. Just start the rookie. But um, yeah, I'm going down a tangent here. I don't even know where I started anymore. I'm excited to be back.
Oh yeah, I think my microphone got muted there. I was trying to help you out there for a
Go
second.
ahead.
But yeah, no. But the thing about goodness, that threw me off terribly. But the thing about Ben and kind of the way that he was, I have a video this upcoming year. That's what I was getting to. Is that where it's going to be about Bill and kind of his coaching through Ben through his first couple of years. And I think that, like to your point, talking about how you have to be able at a certain point, you can't rely on talent anymore. And then
Mm-hmm.
that's when you see guys flame out. You see plenty of guys flame out when they start, but especially whenever they lose what makes them good in the first place and they have nothing to fall back on. I think that Bill, through his first couple of years of Ben's career, making him, I think I mentioned something like making him sit the hell down and look at, like, study what he was looking at and not rely exclusively on his talent to win games is the reason why Ben was able to play as long as he did. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think you can attribute a lot of that to Cowher, because even Mike Tomlin's mentioned that he kind of lets Ben do his own thing with the offense. I think that those couple of years of tutelage really did him a lot of good for longevity. And I think that Russ is kind of finding himself in a somewhat similar spot where he's not horrible or anything, but he was horrible the back part of the year. And you know, at a certain point, talent isn't enough. You know, what's the old man phrase where hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard? And it's once your legs are gone, what do you have left, pal?
Yeah. I mean, but so I guess I don't know. All that is to say that I do think the offense is going to be more competent with Rodgers. I don't know. I kind of expect him to have like close to 4,000 yards passing if he plays a full year. I think he'll throw for close to 30 touchdowns. You know, like 10 interceptions. I think he'll have a year that you're gonna look at and see like, okay, yeah, that was like a pretty good quarterback year. But I just like, if you pair that with what you think the defense could potentially be, they could be pretty good. Like, I mean, there's a world in which this team wins 11 or 12 games, but to get anywhere you want to be, like, obviously you're going to need that. You're going to need that quarterback to be really good when you need him to be really good. And that's what's like left them kind of high and dry these last few years, which is like, even because people always blame the defense, and the defenses have totally collapsed in the playoffs since 2017. That is absolutely true. The fact that we're giving up 40, you know, whatever it is, 38 points a game or something, I don't have it in front of me. It's pathetic. I mean, it's bad. The Jaguars scored 48 points, something like that. What was that game 8 years ago? You know, so
45, I think, and we scored 42, and it was just horrible.
Yeah, and you know, just the fact that you're doing that with a defense that's supposed to be good is bad in itself. But in so many of those games, like even this Ravens game this last year, which I have barely thought about since it happened because it just happened exactly how I thought it would. You know, or that Bills game 2 years ago with Mason Rudolph, which is like a fever dream anyway. You know, the defense did keep them kind of in those games. It's just that you can't go a whole half in a playoff game in the NFL nowadays and not score. Like, you have to put up 10 or 14 points. Like, you have to put something on the board. And the offense in those situations has just been so laughably brutal that it's like they've had no chance. You know, defense football, you know, it's an ebb and flow with both sides of the ball. And if you don't have either, you have no chance. You know, you gotta have one. You gotta at least move the ball on offense. You have to at least possess it and take it away from Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or whatever. So I don't know if they're able to do that a little bit more. I mean, what do you feel about? I mean, I guess playing into that pretty big is the run game. Like, how do you feel about letting Najee go and kind of, you know, moving onward and upward? I know you're a big Jaylen Warren guy, but I think I'm a little apprehensive that he could handle that much workload personally.
So first I want to mention that I can't remember if we scored a touchdown in the first quarter or the first half or whatever in our most recent playoff game. But up until that point, or maybe now, we had been outscored 76 or 79-0.
We did not
in the first half or whatever playoff games.
We did not score until the third quarter in that game.
Yeah. So that shows you right there. I mean, it's not just a bad problem; it's a gaping bullet wound, if you will, and nobody seems to acknowledge it. You know, I don't know. Our team just seems like we're going to bleed out on the floor. I don't know. It's kind of frustrating. But as far as the Jaylen Warren question, which is what you actually asked me, is that Jaylen, I like him, and I don't think that in general we should be giving one running back 25 to 30 carries unless there's extenuating circumstances. This defense is really bad at run defense. Okay, well, fine. I guess we're going to pound it down their throat. I get it. But I feel like Mike Tomlin loves to run his running backs into the ground. And I feel like Jaylen is the next up on the conveyor belt, so to speak, whereas I'd like for... I hated him being used as a third down back, much the same way as I hated them using Benny Snell as a third down back, because I think they're both in the same general archetype. Jaylen Warren's much better, don't get me wrong, but they both have this archetype of give them more carries and they'll get you more production. And so I think that, like, with the fact that he's probably going to get the bulk of the snaps is going to be good for him, but I don't know how good it'll be for his longevity. I don't know if we're gonna. I'm glad we extended him though. I mean, I would do thank God, because if we had lost Najee and Jalen, we'd be up Shit's Creek without a paddle. But I
Yeah.
love the deal. What is it? 2 years or 3 years? I've heard both.
I think it's just 2 years, and it's not that much money. I mean, good for him. Yeah, those guys always deserve to get paid. I mean, you know how I felt. I talked about it for years, how they really abused the salary cap system with Mike Hilton, and I thought that was really not
Yeah.
cool that they did that. I'm glad he got paid. I hate that it was by the Bengals, but he deserved it. They used that to their advantage in that case. So I'm glad they kind of made it right with Jalen and gave him a little bit of money, because running backs, it's just, I mean, it's brutal out there. You try to like, I don't know if you do any fantasy leagues, but I was like trying to do a draft. I did 2 drafts this year. I have one league that's been going a long time with keepers and whatever. And you do the drafts and you get to like the seventh, eighth round, and I'm like, shit, I never heard of this running back before. And you realize like every team has like a second or first year running back, that they just drafted in like the third round, and they're like, and some fantasy guys like, oh, he's gonna be good this year, he's gonna be good, and you're like, that's so crazy, the turnover. But then at the same time, you got Derrick Henry, and he's just gonna be Derrick Henry forever. It's crazy, the turnover there. I like the kid they drafted out of Iowa. Remains to be seen how good he is. What do you think about uh, like a lot of people have differing opinions on like the Kenny Pickett pick, obviously because it was a first round pick. Most people say it's a huge bust. And I agree it's a huge bust, but I always gave them credit because I, as you know, think you don't have anything if you don't have a quarterback. So, like, I don't blame
Hmm.
them for trying that at 20. But now that he is gone, how do you rank that Najee pick? Like, is that a bust or is that just kind of whatever? Or like, how do you think
No.
about him as an asset or as a player now that it's in the rear view?
Well, with the Kenny pick, I mean, yeah, there's no choice but to call it a huge bust. But I appreciated that they swung. You know what I mean? This wasn't
Yeah.
a lot of people thought that he was a second round quarterback. That's the grade a lot of people had on him. And rather than rolling the dice going into round two, why not just take the guy that you want to take? Sometimes it really is that simple.
Yep.
And I appreciated that they swung at it as opposed to potentially letting it go through their fingers, and that they tried it. As far as the Naj pick goes, no, under no, and funny thing, there was a point in his career where I was starting to consider him a bust. I think I might have actually said those words on this show one time, and pretty much right after that, his vision started to improve. He finally got healthy, and I looked like a huge jerk. So I'm very glad for that. Uh, but as far as Naj, I think he's one of the only backs. He's had like 1,000 yards through the last 3 or 4 seasons or something like that. In terms of his consistency, yeah, that's pretty undeniable. His big problem has kind of been the efficiency metric, if you will. What's the joke that if he should get 5 yards, he'll get three, but if he should get 1 yard, he'll get three. Like, you know what I mean? He'll find a way to even it out, but it's also, you'd like to see more sometimes. It sucks that we let him go, and I think that he was definitely within reach, but I also think that he probably didn't enjoy his rookie workload and probably
No.
wanted to get out of here.
Yeah, I think you and I talked about it many times. Like, there was no way he was gonna want to come back unless they were gonna offer him a lot of money, and it
Nah.
didn't make any sense. I don't think he really felt. I think he liked the fans and everything, but I mean, some of them, probably not a lot of them, to be honest. Now that I think about it, but like, I don't
Yeah.
think he was like hateful about his time here, but I don't think he really liked being here. I think he was a pro. I do. I really think he was a real pro because he was the only one who would call out like effort and stuff like that. So like, I like Najee. It's funny. Did you slip in Vision as like a little joke when you were talking about Najee?
Oh, you know what? No, I didn't. I did not mean to do that. I swear. It was because
Streets
we've
are
talked
saying
about
he might.
his.
Streets are saying
Go
he
ahead.
might have a glass eye.
That's brutal. Yeah,
I
that's
don't know.
brutal.
I don't know.
And
I don't know anything about that, but I've heard people say it because he didn't show up without his glasses for like the longest time. He hasn't like had his sunglasses off since his fireworks accident. I hope he's okay. I hope it's not a big deal because I love Najee Harris, and I still have my 22 jersey and will keep it forever until he retires, and then I'll wear it again. But Um,
And as far as his like ability though, or his production, getting 1,000 yards out of what I think it was like 4 straight years, there's no way you can call that a bust under pretty much any definition. I don't think that he hit the pedigree that we were hoping. I think he's probably, hindsight 2020, probably a second rounder, or maybe a high three or something, as opposed to early first like he was projected for a lot of people. But I enjoyed his time here. I love Naj the person, and I wish him the
I
best.
never thought that they used him as a receiver enough. I thought in his first year with Ben,
No.
they used him a lot as a receiver, and he was really good at it. And then they never really. I mean, he made that sweet catch to win the game against the Ravens with Pickett. Like, they just never used him as that. They had it in their mindset that Warren was the receiving back, and he's a good receiving back. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, I always thought they could have been more creative with how they use Najee. But
People were talking about Najee being less of a running back and almost just more of a weapon, if you will, where they were because he had a decent amount of catches for not awful yardage, and especially for Ben, who was gonna throw the ball within 2 seconds, that Naj was going to be a huge part of the equation for him. But it just seems like, yeah, to your point, like after that first year where he showed himself to be a pretty decent check down valve and whatnot, all things considered, they just reverted to separating the roles like as distinctly as they could. They're like, here's what you're doing, and you're not doing a single thing besides that. And I don't like that. They did this. The Tomlin teams do a lot of that. I'm not a fan.
it's funny how, I mean, just so similar every year he had was, except for the receptions. Like, well, really, those are
Mm-hmm.
pretty after the first year, pretty stable too. But like literally, he had 1,200 yards and seven, 1034 and seven, 1035 and eight, 1043 and six. Literally, the last 3 years, he finished within 9 yards each year, like the exact same amount of yardage, and it varied 17 carries. He had 272 in 22, and he had 255 in 23. So like he had almost exactly the same year, like 3 years in a row. That's kind of bizarre actually for a running back. He was always
And we
there.
said the same thing about it. We
Yeah,
said the same thing about him like through each year where, well, I hope he gets a little better with his vision. Again, I'm running back vision, folks. I'm not making jokes here. But like, I hope his ability to read the line gets better. I hope he gets a little, and like he would make these little improvements, but it did feel, to your point, kind of like the same year over with him.
I mean, but isn't that like so funny though? That's like so indicative of how the Steelers have been in the last like 10 years or whatever, or 5 years, where it's just like a same thing every year. That all being said, all right, as negative as we've been for a kickoff stream, I mean, I think that's kind of like our MO at this point, right? Like, not being negative, no, being pessimistic or whatever. No, I get super optimistic during the season once it gets going. I'll be excited. But
Yeah.
all that being said, the Steelers are going to win today against the Jets, right? Like, Rodgers is going to just win today, right? Like, he's going to just. It's, by the way, it is rainy here. I'm not going to the game because I didn't feel like going all the way to New Jersey, but it is rainy and chill, not chilly, but it's rainy. Could be a little bit of a mutter kind of game, but Rodgers is going to will him to a win today, right? Just out of spite, don't you think?
Oh man, I don't have any idea. We are oddly not good when we play against the Jets, and it doesn't matter who their coach is. I mean, anybody except Rex Ryan. We just have problems with the Jets. Zach Wilson had a 2-touchdown comeback in the fourth quarter against us not too long ago against the Jets. Yeah, so I'm terrified, to be honest with you, because these are always the games, right? And I would hate for this to get off to some kind of like 17-14 war of attrition kind of a game where we end up losing on a field goal. I like to think that we have a better roster. They have a decent enough defense. I talked to Steel Flyers about this. Shout out to him. Or RNG Media, I'm sorry. I talked to him about this and about how we have several distinct advantages, especially because the Jets have a new head coach and they got new players and they got Justin Fields, who we have a lot of experience with and even some experience against already. And we should win, right? But how often do we when we should,
Yeah, again, like I'm so quarterback centric. I just look at like, I mean, I know the type of person and quarterback that Aaron Rodgers is, and as much as I differ with him as like, a little bit of a drama queen, whatever, I do.
A little bit.
Yeah, yeah. I yeah. I found no one. I found in my adulthood that like no one is more toxic than the people who constantly complain about everyone else being toxic. you know,
100%.
and I, but whatever about that. But I do just the way he got cut by the Jets. I think it's pretty clear that he has a lot of spite about that because. From what I heard, they like made him fly across the country to like have a meeting to just say like we're firing you, and it's like I get it, I get why he
That's
would
hilarious.
be. When you've achieved what he's achieved, just it's a phone call will do. Like you don't have to fly here. Like it's you're not talking about some kid or something. Like so, I don't know. I think he's gonna go out there today and like really have like a moment, whether it'll last or go for a season.
Yeah.
I don't know, but like I think he's gonna go out there today, especially on that field, and just like want to dunk on them. And I kind of think they're gonna do it. I don't think the Jets are. They're in the beginning of a new era. I don't think that defense is, even if that's their focus, is not going to be ready. Justin Fields. I mean, come on, we practiced against him last year all year. Like the D is going to know how to prepare for him from a passing standpoint. So as long as they're able to kind of stand up and have a backbone in the run game against the Jets, because they are going to run it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to take care of business. I think you're going to see them. I'm going to be bold. I'm going to say that the Steelers are going to put up 27 to 30 points. How about that? How about that? After this whole conversation, I'm like, they're gonna suck. It's gonna be the same. They're gonna score like 28. They're gonna score like 27 points today.
I'll give it definitive. I'm gonna say that the Rodgers is gonna have a hot and cold game. He'll have a couple throws that you go like at least one or two that you go, whoa, holy smokes. And then there's gonna be, I'm gonna say one, maybe two interceptions, which is usually unlike him. He's usually pretty good with ball security, but which is another reason that I think Tomlin liked him. But there's gonna be some growing pains there for sure. I don't think this is gonna be a complete and total collapse, and I don't think it's gonna be a complete offensive powerhouse either. And especially because I do think the Jets still have a good defense. I really don't want to take that from them. They got a really solid D line. They got Sauce Gardner. They got all these guys. There may be a little bit of turnover there, but I don't think it's anything that staff can't wait. And their new head coach, it was their defensive coordinator. Do I have that right? I can't remember offhand.
Yeah, I'm not sure. The guy they hired is it it's I think it's a new hire. Aaron Glenn. Yeah, he was the Lions D coordinator.
Oh, okay.
Right, because the Lions had the hot, but they've had a very hit or miss defense even as they've gotten good, right? So
I was gonna say, when was the last time the Lions actually had like a good 100% like top 10 defense? I can't remember a time. Can you?
Good. They were actually pretty good last year until Aiden Hutchinson got hurt, their star, pass rush guy.
Right.
Like that makes a big difference. But they had been pretty bad. Remember 2 years ago they had Cam Sutton and he was just getting absolutely abused as a number one corner. He's out of the league now, by the way. I don't think he's on anybody. Probably for the best.
He's not on I thought he was on our squad still.
No, he's gone.
Cam Sutton, they cut him?
Yeah, I think he was only signed for a year anyway. I don't think he's signed.
Oh, he was on, okay.
Yeah, I don't think anybody signed. I mean, he was terrible last year. Where's he gonna play?
No, and I mean he's a basket case.
We got Pierre Island, okay? All right, he's elevated from the practice squad. He's going to be playing big snaps. He's been around forever now. He's almost on that Dan McCullers kind of train where you're just like, every year you're like, oh yeah, James Pierre is going to make the team again. It's just okay, yeah, sure, of course he is. It's fine.
Dan McCullers became a guy to root for. He's almost like he's a Ben Skoranek, a cult hero in Steeler fandom, where you're like, how is he? What you would make jokes about that early on in the show, where you're like, yeah, Dan McCullers is still here and he made a play. Good for him, I guess. And just like, where is he?
He was on the team for like 8 years. I remember just every training camp being like, he's still there. Because the first couple years
You
you're
just
like,
must be
oh,
one of those guys.
yeah, the first couple, like
God,
Loudermilk is now becoming that, where you're like, oh, Loudermilk's still there, like they call him Whisper Milk in the Discord server.
whisper
Um,
milk. I forgot about that.
yeah.
Uh,
All right. Well, we got to wrap this up. We got to go sit in front of the couch and actually watch the Steelers play. I'm excited to do that. I'm more excited now than I was an hour ago. So thanks for that, Gage. You got me all excited now. It's always brings me out of my stupor. I always start low and then I'm like, all right, I'm ready to do this. Um,
hey, radio is one of the best parts of the year.
it's fun. It's so stupid. But you know, we have our friends that hang out and check it out with us. So I'm excited to do this again with you guys for the next, I don't know, 10 weeks or so until the Steelers go on their 5-game losing streak to end the season. I'm just kidding. It's going to be awesome. We're going to spend the next 4 months together. Season 7, a 5-star matchup. Premieres tomorrow for better or for worse. I'll see you then. Gage, I guess we'll see you on 5-star radio. Uh, Not sure when yet, but we'll be back. Anything you want to promote before you get out
Soon.
of here?
Yeah, you can find my Yu-Gi-Oh content at Gage Ryan Video. You can find my mixed martial arts content at Contender MMA, and you can find me on Twitter at Gage Ryan Video, and you can find myself, Steel Flyers, Frame, Steve, and the rest all at 5-star matchup.
Mm, love it. Thanks for the promo. Yeah, if you like what we do and you don't know about it, patreon.com/5SMU. You can get the show without like commercial breaks from YouTube over there, and you get access to the Discord server, which is the best part of what we do, in my opinion, especially on game days. So I'm excited to be chatting it up with the boys in there today. But yeah, thanks for hanging out, and we'll catch you down the road on the next edition of 5-Star Radio. Adios. Cool, cool, cool.